English number 2 and
26.
and 26 for Turkish. So as always, we have a small issue. Yeah.
Hello, anladın mı?
You need me to speak? It's okay now? Okay. Okay, you can do it. Yeah, do it.
Well, good morning, everybody. I'd like to welcome you all to this conference, organized on behalf of the World Uyghur Congress, the Representation of the People's Organization, titled The Uyghur Crisis, China's Laboratory for Rights Abuses. We'd like to extend our gratitude to MEP Raphel Glucksmann for hosting this conference, and Corolla Donato for all our hard work in making this reality. The Uyghur crisis refers to one of, if not the most serious human rights crisis in the world today. The Chinese government has detained an estimated 1 to 3 million Uyghurs, Kazakhs, Kyrgyz, and other Turkic peoples in internment camps for over 2 years because of their ethnicity. The very core of the Uyghur identity is being attacked by the Chinese government as it seeks to totally assimilate and socially re-engineer the Uyghur people through a series of repressive measures. Uyghurs are unable to enjoy even their most basic human rights, as the entire region has been described as an open-air prison. The Chinese government has tried to stop any information about the abuses in the Uyghur region from getting out and have sought to stifle criticism of its human rights record. The internment camps themselves operate entirely outside of Chinese law. In this atmosphere of impunity and due to the complete lack of transparency, the Chinese government has tested a number of repressive technologies and policies on the Uyghur people. Dystopian security and surveillance systems tested on the Uyghur people are now being exported to authoritarian governments around the world. And there have been allegations of the use of organ harvesting against Uyghur detainees. The Uyghur region has essentially become a testing ground for repressive technology and policies before they're applied to other parts of China and the rest of the world. In this context, we must be aware what is happening to the Uyghurs will spread and will have consequences for the EU and our international community as a whole. With this being said, I'd now like to yield the floor to Mr. Glucksmann, MEP, the host of this conference, for some opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. As you know, great crimes need great silences. And our silence is now killing people. And that we have to be aware of. And the Uyghurs have fallen into some kind of black hole. Of course, a black hole in China because camps operate outside of the legal system, but also a black hole in the world and the international community. Who raised the voice for Uyghur detainees? We are speaking about the most massive internment process in the world today. And where are the adequate reactions? Democracies are mostly silent until the last moves from the US. And Muslim countries are often supportive of the Chinese policies, as we saw in this, what I call the letter of shame of these 50 countries supporting Chinese crackdown. And inside this parliament, political groups have been absent for so long, 2 years already. We had the resolution, but where are the campaigns? Where is the solidarity that we have to show? So now it's the right time to wake up. It's a very important move that the Parliament has made to give the Sakharov Prize to Ilham Tohti, and it will be next week, the ceremony. But it's not enough. We have to put pressure on the Chinese government. We have to put pressure also on our government. For instance, my president, I'm French, I'm a native from France, my president visited China. He had very good bottle of red wine with the Chinese premier, and at no moment, publicly at least, did he mention the most horrific human rights situation in today's world. At no moment did he have a word for the Uyghurs that are detained in camps as we speak. This cannot last. And at certain point, we have to all question ourselves. What are the principles we stand for? Or maybe, you know, in France, we are proud to have, with the US, being the first to have a human rights declaration. So maybe we should put all men are born equal in rights except Uyghurs, or except all those who are repressed by countries with whom we have huge contracts. And this is very important to understand that it's of course about human solidarity with people in the camps and with a nation that is being erased from the map, which culture, which identity, which religion they want to erase. But it's also for us that we should mobilize, because if we allow a power, a superpower like China, to grow like that, without any checks and balance, without rules, without respect for the rights of people, then we will have to pay the price for it. And as we see, Chinese ambitions are not limited to China. It grows, and the less we check them, the more we will suffer from them. So by defending the Uyghurs today, or the Tibetans, or the Hong Kongese demonstrators, we are also defending ourselves for tomorrow. And this is something to understand, and I don't think that everybody has yet understood it. So that's why I think that this conference is very important in this parliament, but that's why all the campaigns that we can launch to alert public opinion in European countries are very important. And I want to inform you that in France, we have launched a huge solidarity campaign with the Uyghur people. Next Sunday, at 6 p.m., we will have a huge gathering with people who survived from the camps and who will come to testify. We wait for 1,000 people to attend and to show solidarity with also Uyghur music and dances, because what's going on now is the will of a total disparition. The aim is to totally erase from the map Uyghur culture. So it's important to defend it and to show it to European people. So I hope that lots of you will be able to join us in Paris. But most of all, I think that this kind of events should happen everywhere. Everywhere in Europe, in the US, everywhere. Because right now, there is a huge darkness, and we all are going to suffer from our own silence. And I cannot see myself being a member of this house and keeping silence on what's going on in Eastern Turkestan. So it's a question of principle, and it's a litmus test for Europeans and for Westerners in general. Are we going to obey Chinese diktats? Are we going to allow Chinese authorities to go as far as Paris or Brussels and continue their persecution, continue to harass diaspora, continue to make people live in fear with messages coming from Chinese embassies with messages coming from relatives in China? And or are we going to keep our principles and protect the rights of people living on our own territory? Basically, it's a question of whether we are co-ops or not, whether we are ready to sell our principles for contract or not, whether we are independent and sovereign in Europe or ready to be vassals. And that's the question that are in front of us. So I hope that this discussion will allow us to enter deeper in the problem and also to elaborate on common platforms to alert the world, alert public opinion, alert all other lawmakers. In any case, I can assure you, you will find in my office a constant open door and support, because I know what's at stake. It's not only survival of one nation, one people, one identity, one culture. It's also the survival of the principles that have shaped or are supposed to shape still the European Union. So I think that today we should all feel like we are Uyghur and targeted as much as you are.
Thank you very much for those powerful remarks and for the empathy and humanity that you show to the Uyghur people, but also to all those who are suffering human rights abuses. And especially for the work that you're doing in this conference, but in France and in general. We sincerely appreciate it, and the world would be a better place if more people took this position. The EU has taken good steps. They've been a very vocal actor, but more has to be done. For over 2.5 years, people have been in these camps, and yet they still continue. Very little concrete action has happened. So we continue to try to push for this crisis to end. Next, I'd like to introduce the president of the World Uyghur Congress, Mr. Dolkun Isa. He's been a Uyghur activist for a large part of his life, for over 20 years. He is one of the hardest working people I know. He spreads awareness in the EU, UN, and all over the world. I'd like to yield the floor to you, Mr. Isa, to give some opening remarks.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests, colleagues, friends, and my countrymen. I would like to thank all of you for attending this critical time for the Uyghur people. Our conference will examine several different aspects of Turkistan as a laboratory for the right abuses. Many of you have traveled long distance to attend today's. On behalf of the World Uyghur Congress and the Uyghur community, I would like to express our gratitude and appreciation for your time and efforts. I especially would like to thank our host member of Yoruba Parliament, Mr. Raphel Glucksmann, as well as Represent Nations People's Organization. I'm also Vice President of this organization. I'm the honor for this, for their kind support, which allows us to present eyewitness testimony and expert analysis of the Uyghur crisis at the European level. For that purpose, we are bringing together health and medical experts with human rights groups, researchers, policymakers, and Uyghur leaders. Now the time has come to set up for activities to defend Uyghur human rights even more vocally. In light of recent release from leaked Chinese government documents clearly providing reality of the life of the Uyghur region, now we know the time for silence about our suffering is over. This year marks 70th anniversary of the People's Republic of China. Even considering 70 years of the repression and the current crimes and unparalleled in their scale and the severity. We are facing a systematic attack on everything make us unique. Our culture, our language, history, and the religions. As the Chinese government continues to assimilate Uyghur people, our very identity is at risk. Despite increasing awareness of the current crisis, 1.8 million to 3 million Uyghurs remain arbitrarily detained in concentration camps in one of the largest mass arbitrary detention in modern history. Detainees are still being held in miserable conditions, are being subject to torture, political indoctrination. Just yesterday, governor of the so-called Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, Shavkat Zakir, he made a statement saying all Uyghurs, all detainees released after gratitude. Actually, it is lie. As we know, no one is released. Just Chinese government just released some of some family members who have lived in outside, just made victim testimony in the social media. Just want the Chinese government show and continue cheating internationally. Actually, I also able to contact my family members. Since April 2017, most of the Uyghurs in diaspora have not able to access or speak to the family members. Outside the camp, tight network of police checkpoints and CCTV cameras has been established through the all home regions in East Turkestan. Every Uyghur lives in fear of the being next person to disappear in one of these unspeakable camps. As Uyghur, we cannot move unwatched by state. We are not able to go to the mosque without police knowing. We cannot even gather with friends. We cannot give our children Muslim names even. Even our homes, we are being harassed. Every Uyghur family received regularly visits from members of the Chinese Communist Party members. In the face of these crimes, we must not allow the scale and the brutality of the Chinese government action to overwhelm us. We must have to hope and believe that our action can lead to release of friends or family members. In this spirit, we have to convene the conference. The upcoming panel will be explain the threat posed by China inhuman experiments with the Uyghur people, testing of new surveillance technology, organ harvesting, or horrendous systematic right abuse in concentration camps. In the upcoming discussion, we must always have a focus on concrete actions. We must ask ourselves, how can we stop the use of this technology and stop the spread of this repressive technology around the world? As you know, today, Chinese government export more than 18 countries face recognition camera and surveillance technology today. Even some European countries already import on this. The primary aim of this conference is being together medical academic experts and with policymakers, human rights activists, and Uyghur leaders to discuss response to the crisis already underway, to develop strategy to pressure Chinese government to close camp and stop the repression policy in East Turkestan. We are grateful for action taken so far by some politicians and the national government for push towards this goal. We are grateful to members of the European Parliament for the raising this issue and pushing for actions. For some European governments and the United States in particular have consistently raised the camp issue. Step by the US, including the blacklisting of the Chinese companies and the Communist Party officials, as well as support by the Uyghur Human Rights Policy Act, make us hope that much needs effort to uphold human rights will be taken by international community. We urge state instead that independent UN investigation will be sent to the Turkestan. World leader and the government that hold freedom and human rights as a core value must show courage and leadership. Humanity and human rights must be at the forefront of the relation with China and not as afterthought. Recently, all we know, report of the New York Times and the Chinese cabal and show very clear evidence what's going on in this Turkestan for the Uyghur people. There is no longer has any excuse to silence for the international community. We would like to thank you all once again for participating in this conference. Your presence, word, action have been hope for the Uyghur people. I'm looking forward to constructive and action-oriented discussion. With cooperation, purpose, determination, we can effect real change. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your remarks, Mr. Issa. One element that you highlighted that's very important is that this situation goes beyond just the camps. The camps is what grabs the headlines in the news, but this repression affects every aspect of Uyghurs' lives. They feel the fear and anxiety outside the camps too. It's a constant threat. In education, Uyghur children are being indoctrinated to forsake their ethnic identity, their culture, their language. And so this is an ongoing problem that is not just the camps, it's the entire situation. With that being said, I'd now like to introduce our next speaker. That's Ms. Lucia Parucci from our co-organizers, the Unrepresented Nations of Peoples Organization. Ms. Parucci is a tireless worker in the European Parliament. She's been behind many of the great initiatives we've had on the Uyghur issue and on many other groups as well. I work closely with her on the Uyghur issue in the European Parliament, and it's my honor to introduce Ms. Parucci and yield the floor to her. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ryan. You're too kind. It's amazing to be here today and to see the room full of people and to see the silence and the attention that people are paying to this conference. Sometimes when you go to the European Parliament, nobody really pays attention, but I can see that you are all here and you really want an outcome. Today it's a Human Rights Day, and if we are here, it's also because of Mr. Glucksmann, mainly because of him. And his staff, which is true, always has open doors for us. And in a situation in which parties are like competing among themselves, China is pushing a lot to silence the activists. Thanks to Mr. Glucksmann, today we can give voice to the voiceless. And this is something that we have to be very grateful for. And I really, really would like to encourage you to talk with your people and to join them on Sunday in Paris, because he is giving you a very huge platform where you can express yourself and you can finally make sure that people will hear you. As I said, it's a very important day, it's a Human Rights Day. The Uyghurs are among our founding members. I have always said that it's one of our most complex members, and I would have never thought to have people in education camps to this scale. But we have that, and we have to face that, and we have to work hard on that. This house will give the Sakharov Prize, the Human Rights Prize, to Ilham Tohti next week. And I think that this is a huge step forward, and we really need to use the momentum and to make sure that all the countries that are part of the EU will understand how serious the situation is. We have seen many people, many activists, social media talking about the issue, and I think that this is really what it counts the most, making sure that the attention will be still high. I got very surprised last night when we discovered that the council, the ministries of the European Union decided to work on the Magnitsky Act, which is something that we are gonna be a very good big challenge for all the activists in this room, politicians, and if this is gonna work, it's gonna be massive, it's gonna be huge. And we're gonna work tirelessly to make sure that who is responsible for the camps and for organ harvesting will be among these people. Because it's really time, as Mr. Glucksmann said, to take action. The other thing is that as activists, we really don't want to stay silent or like to just say, okay, we had an urgency resolution, we had the Sakharov Prize, we might have a Magnitsky Act. No, we want to take inspiration from what the US has done with Uyghur Human Rights Act, and we really want to push for that. If it's gonna happen, we don't know, but this is our commitment, and I'm sure that all the people here will work together to do so. I'm gonna be very brief, so I'm gonna close my presentation here. We're gonna proceed with a conference at ULB in the afternoon, and I even thank the ULB for not suffering, not being silent against the pressure of China, and giving us another space, an academic place where people can really talk about the issue. So again, don't forget about Sunday and the huge conference in Paris. And I really hope that you're gonna have more information from this very important conference from one of the most important knowledgeable people about the issue. So thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much, Lucia. We indeed have a lot of work ahead of us, but each of us in our own capacity should be horrified by the developments in East Turkestan with the Uyghur people and in China in general, and do what we can as per our capabilities to stop this. Our last speaker in the introductory portion is Mr. Andrea Ngombe. He's an activist fighting kleptocracy and promoting democracy mainly in the Central African region. He's the head of the anti-kleptocracy South Sufit collective, a One Young World ambassador, and is a candidate running for the office of the President of the Republic of Congo. He was horrified by the fact that his country has in fact been silent or supported China on these issues, and he would like to say a few words to this extent. Mr. Ngombe, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ryan. Assalamu alaikum. President Issa Dolkun, Honorable